Okay, I have a very interesting product here. I've reviewed a smartwatch before, well several, but this is the most expensive one. It costs about £70 in the UK, or a recommended retail price of $99.99. So as a recommended retail price of £100 and you can get it for £70. I'm not sure if it's available in the US off the top of my head, but if it is, I'll put a text overlay on this video with the dollar price as well. It comes with a very nice box. It is styled to look like the Apple Watch, but I must say, unlike other ones I've seen, this does look much more like the actual real Apple Watch, and it looks much higher quality. It looks much more expensive, and it looks really nice. It doesn't look really cheap like some. So it is an excellent watch in its own right, even though it's done to look like the Apple Watch. It's a Banaus BS19. Comes in a very nice box here. Hopefully you can see, because I'm using a broken tripod. I have a new one coming at the end of the week, but at the moment I'm using a broken tripod, so it's hard to get a good angle, so I'll do the best I can. In a minute I'll tell you all the specs. I'll show you the box, the inside of the box. It's a really nice box, and then I'll show you the actual watch itself and the sides, back, the bottom, etc. And I'll show you it turned on, show you what it looks like when it's actually on, and the interface and what features it has, what apps, etc. Then at the end I'll give you my feelings on it, and if I recommend it or not. Okay, I'd like to start off by telling you, before I even go into the other specs, that this actually does have a G sensor like the real Apple Watch, which most watches don't seem to have. Not just ones at this price range or cheaper, but actually I have seen quite a few smartwatches which cost more than this one, at least more than its current price of £70, and it is quite a new model, that actually doesn't have a G sensor. This has what they call a G sensor, which means you can have your wrist down and the screen will be off to save battery. Then when you raise the wrist to look at the time, it'll automatically turn on. Then you lower your wrist and it turns back off automatically. Most watches you have to raise your wrist up, then press a button, a physical button on the device. This is much more natural. I know it maybe sounds a bit lazy saying that you want to just raise your wrist and not press a button, because surely pressing a button only takes a second. Well, it does, but people are used to regular old-fashioned watches where you just raise your wrist and that's all. So it feels much more natural just raising your wrist. And if you don't like that feature, or you find it turning on and off the screen too much, it's a bit sensitive, then you can always turn that feature off and have it only turn on when you press a button. So you're not just stuck with using a G sensor, you have the option of either. Okay, it's a nice box. As you see, the lid opens up and it doesn't come right off like some Apple products. It lifts up and folds back. It's really nice. Like some way some products, such as maybe Apple products, if I remember rightly, do it, is the manual is hidden under here. There's a little tab you raise up and there's the manual. Then you have the watch itself, which will be in bubble wrap when it's new, on a little piece of foam there with the band around it and done up. I'll lift it up and you can see it properly in a minute. Then a little box here with the charging cable, and it does charge magnetically like the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch, you have this little suction sort of cup thing that snaps to the back and it charges. This is similar. It's not a round one that snaps to the bottom. It's a sort of a thin, longer one that snaps to the side of the watch, but it works in the same sort of way, the same principle. It comes in 3 band choices: white, black or green. The shell is the same, because with some watches that are made to look like Apple Watches, if you get the black band, the shell is like a space grey or black. No matter what band you get, the shell is still going to be silver, so just bear that in mind. Because this isn't some really expensive Apple Watch, the bands are not replaceable. You can't take them off. They are permanently on there. So make sure you get the colour you want to begin with, because you can't take the band off. You can't replace them. I know that might sound like a big knock, but bear in mind, this is a £70 smartwatch with quite good features like a G sensor. But it's not a £250 or £300 Apple Watch. But it is really good for the price. Unlike some smartwatches, this actually uses Bluetooth 4.0 LE. Some only use Bluetooth 3.0, so this uses the newer type, which is more power efficient. Its processor is a MTK2502 ARM7. The other smartwatches I've reviewed previously, they're much cheaper, bear in mind, but they use, I think it was a 6260A, which sounds better, but it's actually not. The higher the number, it seems like the worse, the older it is. The 2502 is actually the more efficient and feature-packed processor and faster. So it has a better processor than a lot of smartwatches, especially for the cheaper ones. It has a SIM card slot in the bottom, which uses a micro SIM card, not the really small nano, but the sort of the medium size SIM card. So you can actually make phone calls from this watch. And it does have a phone book, a contacts list. Yeah, so you can actually make phone calls, but you don't have to. You can always just pair this with your iPhone or Android phone and get notifications from the phone and stuff, and just use your phone for phone calling. You don't have to put a SIM card in this for it to work. Just if you want to make phone calls directly from on the actual watch, you will need to put in a SIM card in the bottom. Its dimensions are 100 by 80 by 75 millimeters. So it is actually bigger dimensions than an actual Apple Watch. But bear in mind that this, compared to the cheaper ones, like the watches you can get that look like the Apple Watch for about £45, this actually might be technically bigger than Apple Watch, but it looks very slim and stylish, whereas the cheaper ones look quite big and bulky and cheap. This doesn't. I'll show you in a minute. I'll show it close up. I'll show you what it looks like, and I'll also overlay on top of it the smartwatches you can get that are called the A9S. They are done to look like an Apple Watch for about £45, and they do look cheaper and they do look fatter, and I'll show you and I'll compare the sort of sizes for you. This looks very slim, stylish, and the metal looks higher quality. It looks really nice and sharp, this watch. I like it. It has a 1.54-inch IPS LCD screen. Now, it has IPS unlike some of the cheaper watches, which means it looks good even if you turn your wrist at a bit of a different angle. Whereas some of the cheaper ones, if you don't have it perfectly facing onto you, the screen, it starts looking a bit white, a bit washed out, and hard to see, a bit like how those ATM machines used to look, though not so much these days. I think you know what I'm trying to get at. It has a resolution of 240 by 240 pixels, which seems pretty standard in smartwatches, at least at the under £100 price range. It does have a built-in front-facing camera and microphone. So unlike some other smartwatches, which have cameras, but they face, say, straight up the top or out the side, this would be actually useful for Skyping or video chatting. However, the unfortunate thing is there is no app for that. There is no Skype or video chatting app like FaceTime or anything like that on this. They've really missed a trick with this, because most are not hardware sort of compatible with video chatting because they have the camera in the wrong place anyway. But this one has it in the perfect location, so you could answer, say, Skype calls without getting your phone out of your pocket. But yet there's no app, so that's a real pity to this. I think if they put something like Skype on here, it would be a real good selling point, because people wouldn't have to get their phone out of their pocket and answer it and stuff and hold it in their hand. They could just raise up their wrist and hit OK or whatever on the touch screen and start chatting away with their wrist held up. A bit like, say, Dick Tracy or whatever, something like that. I think that would be so cool. But unfortunately, I have to emphasize that there is no video chatting app such as Skype on here, unfortunately, even though it has a good camera in the right position. But if you want to take a quick selfie or whatever, there is a camera there, and there is a microphone, and there is a little voice assistant, which they call Siri, but it's not Siri as such. It's quite basic, its little voice thing. I don't think you can do many commands. I couldn't get many to work. You can't do things like you can on Siri and say, what is the time? Or maybe something more advancing, like asking about stock, all that sort of thing. It's pretty much purely to dial phone numbers. So instead of actually pressing the little buttons on the screen, you could tap on Siri and say the phone number. So that is handy if you like that sort of thing. Also, I'd like to point out, I will show you this closer up in a minute, but here there's a digital crown and then the regular sort of home button. Now, both work. Some cheaper watches that are made to look like Apple Watches, the digital crown is either where the camera is or it's just fake altogether and it's just there for looks and you can't turn it, can't press it. This one, you can press it in and you can use it as a knob and scroll back and forth. So if you're on the main screen of apps, you can use that to make to sort of zoom in and have the bubbles, the icons a lot sort of bigger, so there's less on the screen, or dial it down and have lots of other icons on the screen but smaller, just like on an Apple Watch. Or if you're on a menu such as settings, you can use it to scroll and you can click in to hit enter, or of course you can just hit enter on the actual display. You can use the touch screen for that, but you've got the choice there. Now here we are with it on its phone. As you can see, it does use the same style band as a real Apple Watch, because some of the other watches that are made to look like Apple Watch actually just have regular buckles. This has one of those actual sport bands that work in the same way. You put it on in the same way as a real Apple Watch, where this actually goes sort of under. It's a bit backwards from how a lot of watches work, but it's the same as the Apple Watch. If you know how an Apple Watch works, you know how this band works. Now here is the digital crown that does turn, and then there's the home button that presses in. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but there's a little dot, and that is actually where the camera is, just above the screen, which is actually something an Apple Watch, a real Apple Watch, doesn't have. The current model, there is no new one, there is no 2 at the time of making this video. There is just the original gen, and that has no camera at all. This actually has a decent little camera, front-facing camera in it, which I think is a nice little addition that the real Apple Watch doesn't have. And if they had just put a video chatting app on it, that would be so good, because that's what I wished the Apple Watch would have. I wish the Apple Watch would have a FaceTime app or Skype or both with a camera, but it has no camera, at least not in the current generation. This one actually has a camera, but no video chatting app, unfortunately. Now if we turn it over to the left side, there you'll see four little sort of bronze dots. That is where you charge it. The pad doesn't click on to the bottom like it does on an Apple Watch. It connects to the side. So technically you can actually keep this on and keep wearing it while it charges, as long as you don't pull your wrist away. Mind you, if you did that, because it uses magnets, it would just undo, like the magnetic sort of charging port on a MacBook. So you could wear this at the computer where it's charging. It connects to the side, not the bottom, which is quite useful. I'll show you the cable in a minute. Now, see, I hope you can see this all right. At the bottom is a black little plastic bit that just unscrews and comes off, and that is where you put the SIM card in, underneath that little black circle there. Now, there is no sensors there. This is where there would be sensors on a real Apple Watch, such as a heart rate monitor. That is one feature this is unfortunately lacking in the hardware sense. There is no heart rate monitor like there is on a real Apple Watch. In fact, some cheaper smartwatches have heart rate monitors, so it's a pity there's no heart rate monitor. But basically, you unscrew that bottom and put the SIM card in there. It is quite fiddly to get that little cap to screw back on, but you won't have to do that often. You're probably just going to put in your SIM card and leave it, and not have to worry about having to screw it on and off much. But it is a little bit fiddly, but like I say, that doesn't really matter. Okay, now in the box here is where the cable is. It has a USB on one end. This would plug into either your computer, your MacBook, your PC, or your USB wall adapter. Regular USB, regular standard size USB. Then here we have 2 little magnets and the 4 little prongs, which just clip on to the side. I showed you the left side where the 4 little dots are, bronze dots are on the side of the watch. And you don't seem to have to line up precisely. I didn't. I've never been precise. I just clipped it on, and it clipped on straight away in the right place and started charging. So it clips on very easily. You don't have to be too precise, and works very well. Now I'm about to show you the interface and it turned on. Bear in mind this might be a little bit shaky because I'm having to hold it in place, because I'm having to use a broken tripod, so I can't sort of position the camera and I can't position the watch on something quite like I'd like. So just bear with me. Now you hold in the button for a second here underneath the crown, and it boots up. Okay, now it might be a little bit darker on the screen because I've got it sort of exposed for the screen here, not anything else. So hopefully you can see the screen fine. By default you have this kind of clock face here with the digital time, insert SIM, or it'll say the name of your provider if you have a SIM in the bottom, such as Tesco's, O2, whatever. Down here is an alarm clock, so you can set an alarm, or dialer for dialing a phone call if you have a SIM in, and a stopwatch. You can hold down and change the face from here, and you scroll across as a default. Then there's this one, which is an analog one. Then you have this one, a bit like on the Apple Watch, where it has a digital time, and then the little dot gets higher and goes across depending upon what time of day it is. Then you have this analog one. Then you have this digital one here, which is quite nice. Then back to the first one. It's quite a good selection. Some have less than that, but it would be nice if there was one which had Roman numerals, so people would like Roman numeral clock faces. So let's just put it on this. It has a bubbly background, but by default it has a plain background, but I've changed the theme, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. Then you have this interface here with lots of dots, like on an Apple Watch, you scroll around with. And we can use the digital crown here to make the icons bigger. Now if we want to change the theme, we scroll up and find this little symbol with magic wand. And we have theme 1, which is this one, basically same sort of thing. Then if we go and find, there's one that looks here like a pie chart, we can select that and change it from this smart style to 4 apps, which I prefer, because if you go to them, then there is less on the screen and you don't move around in the same way, and it has the name, so if you're not sure what things are, like sleep monitor, whatever, remote notifications, it has underneath, so you can quickly see what they are and just scroll up and down the list to find them. So I find it an easier way to find icons. The other one looks more like apples, but I find it a little bit hard to sort of find the icon you want, though if you're used to an Apple Watch or something, you might not find that a problem. And we have settings. You can set Bluetooth on or off, set your clock, and if you have it paired with your Android or iOS, then you can actually turn on sync time and it will synchronize the time instead of manually putting it in. Then there's settings for volume, sound, display, when it goes off, magic voice to do a Siri, international, apps. Don't have anything, just uninstall all apps. I recommend you don't do that just in case. You have the clock here as an icon of its own, which just gets the clock settings. Then volume. So basically most of the settings that are under settings are actually in their own icons as well. File manager, your phone book, a reminder to get up every so often, like every 30 minutes, however long you want to set it, such as 60 minutes, okay. Now I want to point something out here. If you see, this one here is one of the few interfaces here that actually have a back button, so you can go back. Now if we are on, where is it, settings, and we go to say sound, well, what if we set like a ringtone, then we want to go back to the main settings without going all the way back to the home screen? You can't, there's no back button. You have to hit the home button and go all the way back, then scroll across, then go to settings. You see, so most of the menus need a back button but don't have them, which makes navigating the settings and some of the apps a little tricky. However, you might not have to do that very often, because the things like the pedometer, you set up and go to options. Now, if you go here and set your height and weight and want to go back, you can't. That's the type of thing I'm on about. This has the best pedometer I've used on a smartwatch. The cheaper ones are nowhere near as good as this. Not only is it a good pedometer, but most only list, say, your steps, or some higher quality ones will list your steps, the distance it thinks you've walked, and your calorie count of how much it thinks you've burnt off. However, this one allows you, as you just saw, it's gone back to the home screen now. This one here, if you go to options, you not only have a history, a log of the previous sessions, which some others do, you can set a goal for how many you want to walk today and it will tell you when you've done that. And to make it really accurate, its counter, you can set your weight and height, which is really good. So the others I've used do not allow you to set your weight and height. This one actually allows you to set your weight and height, so that will make its calculations much more precise. Then you have Bluetooth connection, which is also under settings, and that is just basically turn on your Bluetooth and visibility. Flight mode, to turn on flight mode if you need that. motion. Now this is where you set flip to mute, so you can flip your wrist to mute a call. You can flip to mute an alarm. I've got those off. Now wake up gesture I have on. Now that is your G sensor. It's off by default, but if you turn that on, wake up gesture on, then when you raise your wrist, it will turn the screen on so you can see the time. Lower your wrist, it will turn the screen off so you don't have to press any buttons, just like the Apple Watch, and that is so handy. That is its best feature. Well, the two best features of this watch is its quality. It's really luxurious, really nice, really stylish watch, and it has a G sensor. I've seen smartwatches that cost more money than this without a G sensor, so that is really handy. It's a nice looking watch, really nice compared to others, and it has a G sensor, which I just think is really useful. Quick response is just a QR code you can scan on your phone to download the software on your Android or iOS. Now, something I'd like to point out about that is this so far has the best program I've used for pairing on iOS, because most have a good feature set for Android, but then when they either don't support iOS, or if they do support iOS, they don't support all the features. It might support, say, syncing your pedometer, things like that, but they won't support remote camera, or they won't support notifications, which is a bit bad, because that's one of the main things I think you're going to want to pair this for, is to get your notifications sent from your phone to the watch, so you can say, oh, I've got a notification from Facebook to say somebody's messaged me or whatever. A lot don't support that. This does. This supports notifications and remote camera on iOS, unlike many other watches, so that is really good. It has the best, by far the best iOS pairing of the watches I've used so far. So many are only for Android, or some only have a limited feature set for iOS. This doesn't. Okay, so I recommend you go here as one of the first things you do and turn that on. Then we have dialer. So if you have one of those overclock faces which doesn't have a dialing button, you still have an icon for it here. Bluetooth music for getting music from your phone. Messaging is to write a message or receive a message for SMS. Basically, that's your text messaging here. A sleep monitor, and that will tell you if it thinks you've had a good night's sleep, not very good, restless, etc. And then if we go up here, there is a log of previous sessions. Then you have your camera. Then you have your camera there. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's showing my camera I'm filming this on. Now if we go to options, we can switch to video recorder. So by default it's to take a still picture, but if you want to take video you can by selecting video recorder. No photos. But if you've taken any photos, it would show it there. Then you have camera settings. You can select the shutter sound, your exposure there, your contrast, your anti-flicker, 50 Hz or 60 Hz, scene mode auto, white balance auto by default those are, but you can select different ones, and a delay timer to have it on a timer, which is pretty good. Like I say, if you notice, to go back to show you the image settings, I had to hit home, then go back to the camera. I couldn't hit back in the corner, which is what I was telling you about earlier. Then we have effect settings, restore to default the settings, or image settings for still pictures. We can select a resolution here. And there's two resolutions because this isn't a top of the line camera, and it's not a camera in an iPhone 6s or whatever. So you are a little limited. You have 240 by 240 or 640 by 480. I would select the best one to try to get the best image. But then you can select image quality, and you can select low, medium, good. So it has a decent little camera. I think one of the most useful things to have this front-facing camera would be to do video chatting, to answer your Skype or things like that, and not get your phone out, which would be really good. It has a camera in the right place on this, unlike some other watches, but there's no software, no app for that sort of thing, which is a real pity. There is no video chatting app such as FaceTime or or Skype or anything. You have remote notifications. I haven't got it turned on at the moment, but that is where you can view any notifications you got sent from your iPhone or your Android, such as Facebook notifications, etc. Themes, so we can have 1, 2, 3. Let's have a look at 3. That's kind of a gradient background. Then you have 2, which is basically a bubbly background, quite like that. A vibrator. Now, this is a very weird feature. There's a feature called vibrator, which is a little odd, and all that seems to do is turn on its vibrator that it has in there. So normally if you receive, say, a phone call, you can have it either ring and vibrate, or just vibrate. Now this makes that function go off. It makes a little vibration bit in the bottom vibrate on your wrist, and if you turn it on, there it is vibrating. It's just constantly vibrating until you turn it off. I don't know if that's meant to be just a massage your wrist or what. It's very strange. I don't know why it has that function. Then you have brightness, just to adjust the screen brightness. Menu style, which is where you switch from this style, which is 4 apps in a row, to the bubble style, which is default. Then you have a calendar. UV, which is a feature you don't really see in many of these. There is actually a UV test for ultraviolet light. You hit it and it says measuring. This takes a little minute. It's not super fast. Then it tells you how much UV there probably is, what the light condition is, and it says it's low and it's in green. Normally it says normal and it's in yellow, and if it's really high it'll be red, etc. So that's interesting. So that's quite useful. I haven't really seen that on another watch. Then you can get to your stopwatch from here. You can get to your call logs from here. You can get to your alarm to set an alarm from here, and then there's a power saving mode. You can turn that on or off. It's off by default, and I'd leave it off unless you really need power saving mode for some reason. Then you can get to the video recorder from there, or the sound recorder. There you can record, and there you can do new recording settings. Under settings is audio quality. By default it's low, but you can also put it on high. Image view if you have any images. Video player if you recorded any videos. Then there's remote capture, which is to take a picture using your iPhone or your Android phone, and you just sort of hit capture from here without actually using the device. Maybe you have your phone on a tripod or whatever, and you can stand a little bit of a distance away from it and then remotely take the picture. There's Siri, which I say is mostly just for dialing in numbers using your voice. International settings there for languages, etc. There's a calculator there. And I think we're pretty much back to the beginning here. I think I've mentioned about phone book, pedometer, and that's pretty much it. So what about Facebook, Twitter and WhatsApp apps? Well, some other smartphones have dedicated apps for those. This unfortunately doesn't, but you can receive notifications from Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Yahoo, Weather, and various other apps from your iPhone and Android. So if you have those apps installed and logged in and all that on your phone, if you pair it with this, will send you the notifications from those apps. So you can still get notifications from them, but there isn't any dedicated apps. Like I say, unfortunately as well, there's no video chatting app, which would really make this camera so useful. Okay, so what do I think of this watch? It is really good. It is absolutely amazing because it looks really nice. I don't know if seeing it on camera like this does it justice, but it looks very slim, stylish. The case looks really high quality. It just looks like it's quite an expensive watch, like an Apple Watch, as opposed to the other watches you get which have that Apple Watch design. They might mimic that Apple Watch design, but they look kind of chunky, fat. The metal doesn't look as nice. Some have a little bit of a kind of bevel near the screen on the metal kind of bevels, which looks kind of cheap, doesn't look very nice. And so this watch isn't like that, unlike most of the others. Most of the others, at least all of the ones I've seen, look okay if you're paying not much for it, but it's only if you're paying much money for it, it looks quite cheap and just looks like an Apple Watch knockoff. This one is a nice watch both in its own right and in style. It looks really sharp, really stylish and slim and sleek. It looks really, really, really nice. Like a lot of the other smartwatches for under 100, you will need to get the right color. Make sure you get the watch with the band you want, because you can't take the band off, you can't replace the band, you're stuck with the one you get. So if you want white, get white. If you want green, get green. If you want black, get black. Also remember that black has a silver case. It isn't a black case with a black band. They all have silver cases, just with different color bands. It's really nice. How could it be improved? Well, it has a really nice front-facing camera. It could be made much more useful if there was some kind of an app for video chatting, such as Skype or an equivalent to FaceTime. That would really take advantage of the camera. There is no heart rate monitor, so that is something to bear in mind. Also, some of the other watches in this sort of rough price range, or maybe a little bit more expensive, are waterproof. This isn't waterproof rated, but most of the watches under this price and about this price aren't, so just bear that in mind if that's something you're looking for. But apart from that, I think this is really awesome, especially if you want to pair this with an iOS device. There are plenty of others which pair well with Android, but a lot of these smartwatches, especially for under 100, either don't pair with iOS, or they pair with iOS but they don't have remote camera function, or they don't have notifications. And for me, that's fine with remote camera, because I don't think I'd ever use a remote camera function personally. But the one thing I do want when I pair a smartwatch with my iOS device is I want to get notifications sent to my watch, and some don't do that. This does. It has the best Bluetooth pairing app for a smartwatch that I have seen for under £100. It has one which allows you to pair the program. It's called, I think it's Fundowear, and it doesn't just pair so you can get notifications using a remote camera feature. It also, you can log into it, register for an account, log in, and it will store and sync your pedometer sessions. So it will store your calorie count, your distance, and your steps, so you don't lose those, and it will keep updating and give you the percentage. So say you set a goal of 4,000 today, it will tell you, oh, you've done 60% or whatever of that today. So it keeps all of that on your iOS device and remembers all the sessions. So even if you have to reset your smartwatch or something like that, you won't lose all of that progress. It is all synced onto your iOS device. It is a really great iOS pairing device for a smartwatch. The best I've seen. Most either don't have anything for iOS or it's really cut down. This is the best by far. So it's a really slim, sleek, stylish watch, and it is not just one that looks like an Apple Watch. It's actually a really, really good smartwatch in its own right, and it has the best iOS pairing software. It has a good little front-facing camera, just pity there's no video chatting app. It has more clock faces than most. Most have 3. This has 5. A lot of these smartwatches, especially cheaper ones, only have 2 or 3. This has 5. It's just a pity they couldn't add one more with Roman numerals for people that like that kind of analog clock face with Roman numerals like I do. But apart from that, for £70, this is a great smartwatch. Forget the fact it looks like an Apple Watch. This is a great smartwatch in its own right, with a great app to pair with your iOS if you're looking for iOS. Of course, if you're an Android user with Android phone you want to pair to, then that is a little less relevant, because a lot pair fine with Android. But if you are using this with an iPhone, then this is really, really good compared to many. It's stylish. It also comes in a nice box. It's a really nice box. You might want to keep the box, unlike some products, because nice box to store it in, especially if you want to take it off and store it for a while and not use it. You have a nice box, nice little foam pad to put it on and store it in, nice little box to put your cable in, little manual hidden under this, nice little flip lid, really nice box. The box looks very stylish. It looks like perhaps a box you might get with something more expensive. Very nice box as well. Yeah, I really recommend it. I'll put a link in the description to its product page on their official website, as well as a link to the product page on Amazon, so you can get it from Amazon and check out the Amazon product page. Thanks for watching. Okay, please like and comment on this video. And if you could do me a huge favour and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as it just takes a few seconds, it'll help me out a lot. Also, if you're watching this from the reviews on the product page on Amazon, please hit the button that says that this review was helpful to you. That will help me out a lot as well. Thanks for watching.